Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is Mavidat. This is a video response to Asrinach's question, is normative language necessary? Which is, should language. Normative questions are questions about what we should do, and Asrinach is asking, do we have to use the language of should? And my preliminary answer to this question is that while normative language is extremely useful, and it acts as a shorthand for descriptive claims and subjunctive assertions, like something like, if you do thus and such, I will do this and that. So while normative claims are useful shorthands for those kinds of statements, I think that normative language isn't by itself necessary. So I think it's extremely practical but not necessary. Of course, whether it's necessary or not depends on what you mean by necessary, but I'm taking it that you mean something like unavoidable. Now, for people who... I'd like to motivate this question a little bit, if you don't mind, Azrinach, for people who don't find it inherently interesting, who don't understand why it's an important question, which I personally do. I think it's an inherently interesting question, but then that's why I'm a philosopher. So just for people who don't know, who don't think or don't understand why it's an important question, relate it to the issue of God and morality. Religious people often say that without God there's no foundation for ethics. There's no reason to be good. There's no ultimate ontological basis for ethical truths. And the reason why they make this claim is that classically there is a divide between statements about the way things should be, the way things ought to be, and the way things actually are. And the way things actually are is grounded in the world, in the physical reality. And this is the domain of science, to describe the way things are. But the way things should be isn't usually a reflection of the way things are. Usually the way things the way that you think that things should be is opposed to the way things are. That's why that you say that they should be that way. If you say, for example, there should be an elimination of extremes of wealth and poverty, what you're saying is that possibility, that potentiality, isn't reflected in the way things are. So anyway, there's this divide between moral truths, true claims about the way things should be. You shouldn't lie, you shouldn't murder, etc., and claims about the way things are. So what Azrinach's question is getting at is, can we unite these two worlds into one world, which is about the way things are? I think that you can, because I think that should statements are ultimately statements about what you value and about what you expect other people to value, and if they don't come through on those values, what consequences will result. So just going to your example, I think it's interesting that in your example you ask, the supposed question you're supposed to asking is, are normative statements necessary? But then in the scenario you ask, can you convince your teacher to give you the A that you deserve using only descriptive claims? But why are we restricted only to descriptive language? Why can't we use interrogative language, for example, or subjunctive language? Interrogatives being questions, and subjunctives being if-thens kind of statements. So I think that if you had to use only descriptive language, it would be really difficult to convince your teacher that you deserve an A, because, as you said, she's just saying yeah and to all of your descriptive claims. So I think that you have to, at least at some point, make an inquiry of her reasons. Ask her why she gave you the F, despite the fact that you got all A's. And so here I can imagine two scenarios branching from the original scenario, which is either she can give you a good reason, which is to say that she says something like, well, you missed the final, that's why you got the F, you had to take the final in order to pass the class, and you missed the final, so you failed. Or she could give you a bad reason, which is something like, I just think you're a jerk, or something like that. To which you could, to which you would have to respond if you were limited to only a subjunctive, descriptive, interrogative language. You'd have to say something like, it was my understanding at the beginning of the course, according to your syllabus, that if I fulfilled these requirements, I would get an A, or the grade that I had been getting on um, my assignments throughout the course. And then you could ask her, but you didn't do that. You didn't come through on what you said in your syllabus. So were you lying then, or what? And supposing she still doesn't give you a good answer, then it's not really clear how normative language could have helped you in this scenario. I mean, it doesn't seem to me that at that point, if you had said something like, okay, and you broke down and you used normative language and you said something like, well, you should give me an A, and then she would all of a sudden say, oh, okay, since you put it that way, I'll give you an A. No, I mean, at that point, she's already given you irrational, non sequitur reasons. So why would she then all of a sudden fold to your normative language? So my point is just that uh, descriptive, subjunctive, interrogative language can get you just as far as normative language, um, but normative language is much more practical. It's much easier to go into her office and say, um, look, I got all these A's throughout the course. It seems to me that I deserve an A. Shouldn't I be getting an A? Instead of saying something like, the syllabus says that if I do well on these assignments and the test, then I should get it. That I would get an A. Um, so that's the long way of going about it. Uh, but the normative language is the shorthand. So anyway, in short, I think that you can use descriptive, subjunctive, interrogative language, but that normative language is extremely useful, that we shouldn't do away with it, and that we should get used to it.